In 3, 2, 1, we are live. This is Robert Phoenix broadcasting to you, of course, live from the Hill Country here in Texas, where it is desultory, overcast, wet. Good for us, not so good for you folks in Oregon, Washington, California, who are all of a sudden transported to the hellish furies in the oxide-rich skies of the planet Mars. Uh, So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. We're also going to get into kind of a global COVID or Corona roundup, and I'm going to go around the planet and show you the latest, what's going on. There's a lot of information now coming out about the failed AstraZeneca vaccine, and we're going to try to cover some of that, and essentially where we are as we run up to the big Mars Retrograde, which starts tomorrow. Mars is stationed today. It is 9/9, and it is a pretty it's a pretty interesting day numerologically, right? 9/9/2020. So we have the 9 and the 9 and the 22. So that's going to be 4, and 9 and 9 is 18/9 plus the 4, and we're going to have 4 energy today. So as my friend Misaki has stated, the 4 energy is Aquarian energy. In traditional sort of numerology, it's all about building, structure, order, and form. So even though today is a day where things are cycling out and there seems to be a pattern of coming to some form of conclusion, that's what happens with 9. We come to a conclusion, we come to an end. There's also the energy of building. So what are you building on? Are you building on the new? Are you building on things that you've sort of let go of? What's left? The aftermath? It's just going to be a very interesting period from here on out. We are really in the gullet, the deep gullet of transformation, and it's not going to get easier or lighter for a while now. And look who's here today, just to give you guys a little bit of his cat guru energy. It's our boy Jasper, the astrological cat, who really enjoys now me being inside because it's wet and rainy outside. Isn't that right, Jasper? Yeah. He gets to have his little 5 minutes. Little 5 minutes. What are you going to do? You going to stay on my lap? I guess I'll stay on my lap. So let's see. Who do we have here today? Who's in the bullpen? Who do we got? Let's see. We got Frank Bry. Frank, I resent that link yesterday. I hope you got it and was. The thing with Zoom, these Zoom links is that sometimes people can't download them. Sometimes people have to have an app. I mean, there's a whole kind of strange ritual with the Zoom links, but I resent those out yesterday and with a different kind of link. All right, let's get into let's see. We got PB. Good morning. Here's Anna Erickson. What's up, Doc? We got 2 docs in a row. Lovely and talented Joan S. Justice Moody. 10 Dragon. Double V. What's happening, VV? Gonna miss you. Wish you could be coming on your JMP. I will reach out to you today. There's Lils. There she is. Mojo Mama. Got her mojo going on. And Ryan. Good morning, Ryan. Ran into Max Eigen yesterday. Oh, okay. Well, that's interesting. I interviewed Max a long time ago. Max is one of those, he's iconic. Max Eigen is iconic. That's the word I would use to describe Max Eigen. Iconic. Voyagers of the absurd. Tamara Garth in the house. Looking forward to meeting you, Tamara. There she is, Judy. Tea time with Tessia. TWT, tea time with Tessia. Because tea time is one word, huh? Okay, what else do we have here? Chinese bottled water makes founder China's 3rd richest person. Aquarian, good catch. Aquarius rising on the Chinese ascendant. Let's see. What else do we have here? We got Michael R. Cold and snowy, Wyoming. Whoa. Yeah, I think Oregon and Washington, they've got snow. They actually have snow in Colorado. I saw some pictures from Aspen yesterday, utterly stunning, with the big pine trees and the heavy boughs of snow in the trees. Okay. Do Jasper's chart. I don't know when Jasper's actually born. I think he's a Taurus. I think he's Taurus. I was not there at the time of Jasper's birth. And, but I remember him, I distinctly remember Jasper's arrival into my life. There was a two phase arrival. So the story goes like this. Um, we had a death in the family, and the death was our cat, which was a very interesting cat. It was not any of these cats, obviously. It'd be pretty cool if Jasper was dead and I was able to bring him back to life, but that's not the case. Anyway, we had this cat, and he was an amazing cat. He was a black cat, and I really like black cats. And he was one of these cats where you could take him out on a walk, and he was really cool that way. He would just follow you, and he and I had a special bond. That was pretty apparent. Like, he liked other people in the household, but I'm just being honest. He didn't like them as much as he liked me. So, as my personal history would have it, that household, right? And that cat didn't come with me, and it wasn't long after that cat actually died, which was interesting. He was such a character. This cat. He was an indoor outdoor cat. He was a wanderer, and he would rove, and he'd go from place to place and get snacks. And when we lived in Southern California, people would leave Christmas gifts for him on our doorstep because he had tags. That's how popular this cat was. Anyway, of course, to fill the void, there had to be the acquisition of two new cats, and not one but two. And so I went down to the animal control place in San Francisco, and we were introduced to these two cats, and one was Jasper and the other was Rosie. And Rosie was Miss Personality. She was like, super, super friendly. She really hasn't changed very much in some ways. In other ways, she has. And Jasper was, he was really schizo. He was very shy. He did not want to be held or anything. He'd been on the streets. He was a street cat, San Francisco, and they took both of them, and that was my first introduction to cat Jasper. He was a total scaredy cat, and then apparently he spent 3 days behind the washer and dryer before he was able to come out and learn how to be a socialized cat. And then I guess it may have been, I don't know, about a year and a half later, maybe about a year later, I think. The cats couldn't stick around. So the story. It was either take the cats or have them rehomed. So I took the cats. And that was my second introduction to Jasper and Rosie. And then, they hung out and they showed up at my place, and they were there for a while, and it was cool. And we were getting to know each other. And I didn't really figure Jasper out until he moved to Austin. And that's when his personality really came to the fore. So Texas has been pretty good to Jasper. Okay. Let's see. Hey, Evan Taylor in the house. There's Ani Brito. Evan, loved your mother, man. She was cool. Very cool. Interesting person. Let's see what else we have here. Who else? I've never seen Rosie. Oh, I've had her here a few times. All cats are schizo. Well, Jasper's pretty consistent, I'd say. Domestic cats are the only cats with reptile eyes. Any thoughts? Yeah, I think they were crossbred. Ask Joan about that. This cat adjusting to chilly Colorado morning. Does anyone remember Robert watch for police officer protest. Just saw the entire. Yes, absolutely. I was going to bring that up. What's up, Charles? Hometown Rochester went through some shit. I'm pissed off, and I want to go back. Well, I understand that. Let's just do a little prayer here, and we'll jump into some news items. And yes, we are going to cover the resignation of Chief Laurent Singletary in Rochester. Dear blessed and Holy Father, Mother God of the great central sun, within universal light, we ask that only the highest and best information come through this channel at this point in time, and we humbly accept and embrace the gifts of clarity and purpose, stillness, patience, fortitude, endurance, flexibility, intelligence, humor, commitment, discernment, and empathy, and above all, love. We ask that any karmic residue be cleansed, purified, clarified, and removed from this stream at this time. And with that, so be it. Okay, the audio is better. Well, the audio is better because I'm sitting here talking to you through my Yamaha headphones, and I'm jacked right into the computer. So the quality of the broadcast will be better out here, or in here rather. You just won't see the great tree of life. So the upside, better audio, better video. Jasper, downside, not outside, no tree of life. Okay, so we got 71 peeps, and again, I want to welcome all of you to this morning's live stream, and thank you all for being here. Let's get into some of the stuff. FUP was talking about this, and this happened yesterday. So this is interesting how they spin it. So by the way, I am not a newscaster. I'm not impersonating a newscaster. I am a person who has views, and this is for entertainment purposes only. And by being here in this video, at this point forward, you are consenting to being in this video. If you do not want to be part of this video, now is your time to leave the video. In 3, 2, 1. Okay, here we go. There's your new face of America, the Pittsburgh Panthers. This is how we all live now, theoretically, not me. Here we go. Rochester Police Chief Laurent Singletary is retiring, along with other members of the Rochester Police Department's command staff. Mayor Lovely Warren said yesterday. The mayor held a 90-second press conference. Wow, there you go. That's economical. On Tuesday to address RPD shakeup and not take questions from media. This seems to be an ongoing trend now. She's not going to take any questions from media, nor is Kamala Harris taking any questions from media. There is no dialogue anymore. The space for dialogue, the space for reasonable queries is over. Done. And that will really be the dictum moving forward. This is how it's going to be. This is going to be the new law of the land. People will say what they have to say. There will be no opportunity to experience any interchange. And that's how it's going to work. I want to ensure our Rochester community that the Rochester Police Department will continue to serve and protect our residents' neighborhoods. Oh, really? Oh, really? You mean like you did over the weekend? Mayor Warren said Chief Singletary will remain in charge of the department through the end of the month. We have spoke. I think the word is spoken. We've spoken about maintaining restraint. It would be we spoke. We spoke. We spoke about, or we have spoken. I can see that the level, that the requirements for being a mayor in a city across America have swiftly plummeted. Let's see what else we have here. Through our ongoing protests, we as all involved to remain. What? This is just the most. This is a quote. We have spoken about maintaining restraint through the ongoing protests as we all involved to remain peaceful. That is just tortured language. Oh my God. I can assure this community I'm committed to institutional reforms necessary in our police department. I know that there are many questions, but this just occurred and honestly do not have all the answers today. What is this? RochesterFirst.com? A little punctuation might be nice there too. Boy, I'm in such a fucking Virgo mood today. Joining Singletary retirement is Deputy Chief Morabito, Commander Fabian Rivera, Commander Elena Correa. Rochester police officials say both Deputy Chief Mark Simmons, Commander Henry Favor are returning to the previously held rank of lieutenant. Deputy Chief Mark Murrow will return to the previously held position of captain. Retirements come on the same day that the Prude family filed federal civil rights lawsuit Tuesday against the city of Rochester. A number of police officers alleging an internal cover-up by the RPD and demanding a jury trial in an 82-page document. Elliot Shields, an attorney for the Prude family, issued the following statement Tuesday regarding retirement within the RPD. These resignations are a good first step. But the RPD's official written determination is contained in a report issued at the conclusion of the investigation conducted by the Major Crimes Unit, dated April 27, 2020. So they're going way back now. They are going back into case history. And if you so here's what I can tell you right now, here's what's happening. Because it is fairly difficult at times to manufacture an event so that that event can be used as a catalytic point or a catalyst to spark another series of outrage, protests, and outright mayhem. So I guarantee you there are people, perhaps lawyers, perhaps paralegals, who are being trained and paid by BLM and related groups, and they're going through various cases of so-called police brutality or arrests all across the nation. I guarantee you that right now. They are in the exhumation process, so they're exhuming case files. That'll also be part of this Mars retrograde. What else can we find retroactively? Which is what happened with Daniel Prude. And obviously, there was a judgment that was issued during that time. And now all of a sudden, they decided that they were going to sort of resurrect the golem, not Daniel Prude, by the way, resurrect the golem and go back and exhume the evidence here. So Mayor Warren and Chief Secretary claim that the video is horrible, ignores their own department's determination. They have failed to address or repudiate the department's conclusion that the officers' actions were appropriate and consistent with their training, which demonstrates a complete lack of leadership. That's why RPD needs a complete overhaul. There is much work to be done. So this is not just about Daniel Prude and figuring out what's in it for the family in terms of a grief settlement or grievance settlement. No, they're using this as a platform to go in and completely torque Rochester's police force. So local Black Lives Matter activists have been calling for Singletary to resign since Wednesday. Due to his department's handling of the Daniel Prude investigation, Singletary said he wouldn't resign Sunday. Singletary was promoted to chief of police by Rochester Mayor Lovely Warren in April 2019. So he was there for a year. And we have Mars markers here. April 2019, then April 2020. Singletary, okay, so he'd been there for 20 years. Okay, after 20 years of dedicated service to Rochester Police Department and the Rochester community, I announced my retirement. He's getting out. Then you have this deputy chief, Morabito. He's gone. Monroe County Sheriff Todd Baxter. Today, law enforcement's community suffered a shockwave with the announcement of the impending retirement and reassignment of the command staff. That's the command staff. So those are the people that essentially tell people what to do. They have no leadership. They're promoting some people, but now the people that are being promoted are beholden to Mayor Lovely. I've spoken with, I've offered our steadfast support to the leadership and members of the Rochester Police Department through this period of transition. The Rochester Police Locust Club issued a statement that was critical to the mayor's office. Of course, Trump has to chime in. What does he say? Police chief and most of the police in Rochester, New York have resigned. The Democrat mayor and, of course, is Governor Cuomo. Come on, D. Let's go. Tighten that up, too. Have no idea what to do. New York State is a mess. No money, high taxes, and crime. Everyone fleeing November 3rd, we can fix it. Okay, we got an election point opportunity. Sandra Doorley says, I've worked closely with all these men, and I know of their honesty and integrity. To those who have announced their retirement, you will be missed. What is this now? Gates Police Chief and President of Monroe County Chiefs, James Vanderbrood on RPD stepping down, shocked but not surprised with all the dysfunction going on now. Huge loss for city and residents of Rochester. So this nothing but good words for Mr. LaRon Singletary. 7 Rochester police officers have been suspended with pay in connection to the incident. Officers Mark Vaughn, Troy Talladay, Paul Ricotta, Francisco Santiago, Andrew Spexgore, Josiah Harris, and Sergeant Michael Magri. Protests have been ongoing. So there you go. We talked about that. We talked about how this was going to happen, that we would see with the Mars Retrograde. You're going to see more of this with Mars Retrograde. This is just the start. This is just the start. You're going to see more of this. You're going to see more of these police chiefs, police officers either retire or in some cases, they may even just decide to go on strike. They're going to say, fuck you. We're not going to be working with you here anymore. We're done. So this is an astrological function, right? This is that astrological exposition of what we're witnessing right now. It's happening right before our very eyes. Okay, so we have a little bit of a crisis here. What's going on? 170,000 without power in Salt Lake City. That's Natasha. The first 2 days of school canceled. States of emergency. A lot of states of emergency going on right now. Obviously, in Oregon, there are fires that are being set. Yep. What we're witnessing now in Oregon, the state of Oregon, the state of Washington, is essentially arson. And now we're seeing the next stage of the attack on the United States of America, or America. We're seeing the next stage of the attack, which is the burning of land and the burning of property. This is going to be, I think, even more visible when Mars is at its closest, which is going to be on October 13th. That's when Mars is really super close to the planet at that time. So I can tell you right now that that this is going to happen. Because number one, it's an astrological effect. Number two, this is going to be the next stage of the rollout of this campaign. It's a numbers game. And even though it feels like there is a horde of hooded street dogs that are out there doing their very best to disrupt, destroy, and damage the infrastructure of major American cities and some minor ones as well, their numbers are not great. Based on the overall population, it's a small, concentrated, yet very focused and tactical and directed group. So in order for them to have more impact with less numbers, they have to do things that are going to be less labor intensive. And we know what that is. It is the widespread destruction of property. Now, the good news is that the weather is changing. And, that unfortunately in California, you guys are living on the surface of Mars, you and Oregon and to some extent Washington, excuse me. The weather will change and, there will be more precipitation and it will get colder. Keep that in mind. It's really easy to get out and go five-finger discount at, in an inner city when the conditions are hot or warm. It'll be a bit more difficult when the conditions change. So atmospherically, meteorologically, there will be a change or a sea change in what's going on. Now, this is why the Democrats want to do everything to have this done by November. Because when winter comes around, they don't have the luxury of sending their shock troops out in the freezing cold. Try to ransack Minnesota in the freezing cold. It's not going to happen. They're not going to do it. Try to ransack any eastern city or any northern city. No, they're not going to do it. They'll be hunkered down and bunkered down, and they'll be waiting for spring to roll around, and they'll hatch like roaches when the weather changes. So this is going to be kind of the height really of where we're at, especially with Mars, both the astrological weather and the meteorological weather. They're going to want to take as much advantage of that as possible. So buckle up, boys and girls. Buckle up. There are clearly going to be more events headed in our direction. Then once we get into the election, the chaos of the election will have its own force multiplier. All right, let's get into some of the corona stuff because I think that's worth talking about. Let's see, where do I want to go? Let me get into this. Hold on a second. Let me see if I can find it. Let me get into, that's the Fullerton Informer. That guy's interesting. All right. So I want to get into this. This is Australian PM Scott Morrison. Now, what he's gonna be doing here. I'm going to show you this. What he's going to be doing here is he's playing good cop, bad cop with Dan Andrews. Good cop, bad cop. They're both working towards the same agenda. They're both working towards the same goal. But Scott Morrison they've decided that he is going to be kind of the voice of reason. He's going to be the guy that is there for you, Australia. And he will be there to help take the heat off of Dan Andrews and his absolutely tyrannical grip on Melbourne. But he's not really there to do that at all. What he's there to do is he's there to help you submit to Scott Morrison's overall plan. And they're using Victoria and they're using Melbourne as a platform. And once they figure this out, they'll roll it out all across the rest of Australia. So let's watch Scott Morrison, who's the PM of Australia. Let's watch him play good cop. Okay, let's do that. Here we go. They say it's a war of words. It's not a war of words at all. Look at the headline here. I got to go back and play let me just do this. I have to go back and play the video. I got to get the audio in there. Hold on. There we go. So it is not a war of words at all. It is anything but a war of words. They'd like you to think it's a war of words, but it's not. And this is how psychological conditioning works. The war of words between Scott Morrison and Daniel Andrews is intensifying. Okay, let's watch this. There's no war of words at all. They're just playing good cop, bad cop. All right, take it away. Scott.
Yesterday by the Premier, as I said, it was crushing news. Of course it was. The announcement that Victorians would continue to live under curfew and be under these restrictions for many months, if not just weeks, in the most harsh of those restrictions, of course is crushing news. And I know Victorians, and Greg has just joined us today directly from Victoria. The feeling out there today is hard. They're frustrated. The mental health of Victorians will be sorely tested.
The
plan that was outlined yesterday, I hope, is a worst-case scenario. I see it as a starting point.
As a starting point.
In terms of how this issue will be managed.
You see what happens there? Okay. So what Dan Andrews will do is he'll just lay out the most draconian, hardcore plan. Now, Scott Morrison will come in and say, oh my God, oh wow, this is really bad. This is really terrible. Really terrible. But I'm here to be the voice of reason. And they know that that's not what they want. What they want is something closer to the middle. To the middle. They'll take off a few of the things off the top so that people will accept the middle. This is how politicians work. You know, whenever they want to bring a bill to the Senate, you know, Congress will draft a bill. They'll draft a bill that's completely absurd. And then they go into this negotiation, and they whittle it down to theoretically what they really want. They always ask for more than what they really want. If for some reason the people are completely blind and idiotic enough to give it to them, they'll take it. They'll just say, oh my God, I can't believe that. But really what they're working at is they're working on that middle, slightly above the middle option that they're carving out. So this is what Morrison and Andrews are doing. Let's continue to watch this.
Managed in the weeks and months ahead in Victoria. We will continue to carefully review this plan. We're yet still to receive the detailed modelling. We've seen the high-level modelling and the other assumptions that have gone into the plan. But what I can't help but be struck by is that under the thresholds that have been set in that plan, Sydney would be under curfew now. Sydney doesn't need to be under curfew now. They have a tracing capability that can deal with outbreaks. That's why I say it's important.
Did you hear that? They have a tracing capability that can deal with outbreaks. So what he's really pushing for is tracing, contact tracing, which is more top-down control. It's basically putting a cattle collar around you. Like it is putting a cattle collar. So he's essentially saying, look, Sydney can do this. They've got it right. And we can do it here in Melbourne. And all you have to do is submit to the contact tracing. Do you see what happens here? This is in their mind, the lesser of two evils. One that's more effective. It allows people to be more free, go about their business. Oh my God, don't you just want to do that, Melbourners? This is what Scott Morrison is offering you. Let's go.
That we work on building that tracing capability in Victoria to get it at a level that enables it to move in a more confident way than I think the plan that was announced yesterday set out. It was a very detailed plan, and it is based on a set of scientific modelling. And
do you see what they're doing here as well? This is very much like what's happening in the United States. And Scott Morrison is playing the Trump role. And Dan Andrews is playing the Gavin Newsom role. Do you see how that's working? You see how this is working? And Scott Morrison and Dan Andrews, they're actually working in tandem. They're working in tandem to ultimately get what Scott Morrison wants. All right, let's keep going here.
That is what I know will be interrogated, not just by the Commonwealth Government, but many others in the scientific community will look at that. And the decisions that have been drawn from that modelling have very profound effects for people living in Victoria. And so it's right, and I'm sure Victorian Government would welcome that interrogation of that. We will be providing constructive feedback on that plan. We will be sitting down with industry. We will be sitting down with business through our national coordinating mechanism, which is run out of the...
Does it sound like Trump? That sounds just like Trump. We'll be sitting down with business. We'll be sitting down with industries, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Department of Home Affairs, and we'll listen carefully and we'll faithfully convey all of that feedback. As I said, I hope it's a starting point. I hope we can move more quickly than that. Obviously, the legal authority for all of these matters, of course, rests with the Victorian government. It's not for the Commonwealth government. We do not have that authority.
See, same thing. The states have their authority. We don't have that authority. So what they're doing is they're using this kind of faux balkanization in order to create a form of leverage, right? A form of leverage. And people are displaced in their relationship with the state. It's exactly what's happening. They're displaced with the relationship with the state, which is, again, we're seeing this Gemini effect where things are splitting off. And what happens to the individual, they get split in the process. This is all trauma-based mind control. All trauma-based mind control. And what Dan Andrews is, Scott Morrison is being set up to do is to be the good guy, the dad who's going to come in and restore order and save the day. That's a Trump script as well. It's the same script.
Authority to step in and tell the Victorian government they have to follow another plan. That is not how Australia's federation works. And so it is incumbent upon us to work constructively with the Victorian government to raise these issues.
So what would happen if Dan Andrews said, we're not going to do anything? We're going to follow the Sweden model. Do you think Scott Morrison would be A-okay with that? NOPE. No fucking way. If Dan Andrews said, we're just going to follow the Sweden model, that's our, or whatever other state in Australia wanted to do that, do you think Scott Morrison would allow them to do that? No. N-O. So it's this feigned kind of, these states, it takes the responsibility off of the so-called leaders. But really what's happening is they're working in tandem. It's exactly what's happening.
As we will with them in the days.
Oh, and by the way, what if all of a sudden one of the states in Australia said, we want our guns back? Yeah, we're going to pass a gun law here. And do you think Scott Morrison would be okay with that? Do you really think he'd be okay with that? Oh, well, no, all of a sudden now the Commonwealth now has the power and the right to do what it needs to do in order to protect the states.
I imagine the weeks ahead and remain always responsive to the most recent information. And so building that tracing capability is incredibly important. The other thing that I'd be looking forward to seeing soon is the announcement by the Victorian government about what the economic support plan they will be delivering to Victoria to mitigate the economic consequences of the plan that they've outlined. It is right that the Victorian government make the first response to set out what the economic supports are they will put in place to deal with the measures that they have put in place. The Commonwealth Government is already providing significant assistance to Victorians through the many programs we've had in place now for many months. And
this guy's just playing Trump. He's playing the Trump card. It's exactly what's going on here. It's a mirror. It's an absolute Gemini mirror of what's happening in the US.
Particularly the extension of JobKeeper and JobSeeker. Victoria will draw down on that more than any other state or territory. Victorians are being supported more by the federal government than any other state and territory is drawing on that support, and we will continue to do that. So what is required over and above the support the Commonwealth Government is providing to Victorians, we first want to see what the Victorian Government will be doing to address that. And then we'll consider, the Treasurer and I and the senior members of the Expenditure Review Committee, what further...
And Xi Jinping of China.
...further measures may be required. But let me finish on this. Australia is in the leading pack of countries in the world today for how we are protecting Australians' health and protecting their livelihoods.
Right. For how many cases? 600 cases? That's a very noble cause.
That is the clear, objective assessment of countries all around the world, and I refer particularly to the Deloitte analysis that was released over the last few days, which shows clearly that Australia sits in the right part of that chart with countries like South Korea, economies like Taiwan and others who are managing this best in the world today. And we can take some encouragement from that, and we can take some hope from that. And the other thing Australians can take hope from today is that their government, their Australian government, their federal government, is providing hope through a sovereign vaccine plan which will keep us.
There it is, the sovereign vaccine plan. Is that just some mind-fucking Orwellian speak right there? Let's try that again.
Australia right up the front.
Let's do that. He drops that right in at the end. The sovereign vaccine
Their
plan.
Australian government, their federal government, is providing hope through a sovereign vaccine plan which will keep Australia right up the front.
What the hell is a sovereign vaccine plan? What is that? What does that mean? Sovereign vaccine plan. Okay, so you see how the game works? You see how the game works? This is how the game works. He's the patrician, good cop, Mr. Order. Dan Andrews is the guy who is Simon Legree, and he's going to have this drastic overreach. And Scott Morrison is going to step back and, let them figure it out. But really, that's a bunch of bullshit, because if they wanted to take the Sweden route, or they wanted to legalize guns in one of the states of Australia, do you think Scott Morrison would just be hands off? No way, man. No way. No way. Surely get a notification day. Yep. Start learning Mandarin, Australia. Yeah. Steve, government is true slavery. Yeah. Yeah, I think everybody has Lyme. And Glenn Streeter is in agreement with me, by the way. Yeah, everybody's got Lyme. Everybody has Lyme. Mm-hmm. The Borrelia is the Borrelia, right? The Borrelia bacteria came out of Plum Island. The old Lyme disease. And you can overcome it. It can be done. You have to really be very mindful of what you put in your body. Very mindful. Once you get your diet right, once you get everything running, you will have less issues. The induction phase is difficult. So what else is going on with Corona World? Shall we take a little tour to one of the other Commonwealth countries, one of the other Five Eyes states? How about England? How is England doing with the deadly virus? Well, here we go. This guy, Bojo, has decided, well, you're only going to be able to have 6 people in a group. Well, there's been a lot of people in England, London, who have decided they're going to hit the streets and protest this bullshit. So here he is, the man with the most famous hair east of the Atlantic. Boris Johnson will ban gatherings of more than 6 people, both indoors and outdoors, across all of England from Monday. There you go. England, you are now essentially placed under a new form of house arrest. Your ability to gather and protest these conditions has been nullified. The health secretary said the government was moving to simplify the rules around social gatherings by limiting groups to 6. There's actually 6. You only have 6 people, 6 feet apart. Speaking of Times Radio, Matt Hancock said it will be much easier for the police to enforce, because the previous rules, you had 2 households It was much harder to work out what was and what wasn't okay. Fines for those who breach the rules will range from 100 pounds to 3,200, the health secretary said, although there will be exceptions for such events as weddings, funerals, and christenings. We have got to bring in clear, stricter rules this autumn, unfortunately, to stop the spread of the virus. This is fucking ridiculous. One of the things we heard back, including from the police directly, was that we need a simpler set of rules that are very straightforward, that everybody can understand, and we'll be publishing those rules very clearly and enforcing against them. What does that mean, enforcing against them? And clearly enforcing against the rules. We'll publish the rules very clearly, and then we'll enforce them accordingly. I'm a language cop today. I got my language badge on. Ministers were shocked on Sunday when virus cases doubled to almost 3,000. The highest figure since May. We know the tests are bullshit. The tests are bullshit. Where are the mortality? Where's the fatalities? They have used local lockdowns to control flare-ups. And in Bolton, the rules were tightened again yesterday with a 10 p.m. curfew on hospital venues and a ban on dining out. Downing Street said the surge appeared to be driven by young people, often in affluent areas. The PM spokesman said similar outbreaks among the young in the United States and Europe had spread to older people a few weeks later with deadly effect. He added, we need to ensure that doesn't happen here. Really? Where there are people in hospitals across the freaking planet. Now, that's not to say that there aren't people who are sick. There are people that are sick. There is something that is making people sick, but it's not to the degree, excuse me, that they're talking about. And it's not the thing that they are essentially legislating on the fly with. It's not. Period. End of story. Mr. Johnson will underline the message at a press conference this afternoon. Will be flanked by Chief Medical Officer Chris Whitty and Chief Scientific Advisor Sir Patrick Vallance. Those are your new administrators of governance for the fourth industrial revolution. It is the Chief Medical Officer and the Chief Scientific Advisor, because they are in the business of administrating protocols. And when you have protocols, there's no negotiation. There's no negotiation. There's no debate. There's no legislation. It comes down from the top. And if you sacrifice or you cross the line of those protocols, you are putting yourself and others at risk, and therefore you should be removed. So we're moving out of the realm of politics. We're moving out of the realm of discourse. We're moving out of the realm of so-called democracy. And they are ushering in a new age where scientific command control is going to be the way that things are going to be ordered from this point forward. And there will be no, and again, I mean, what are we seeing now? We're seeing this potential for debate and dialogue and discussion just being burned like a business, like a street front business from the 20th century. The mayor of Rochester, she won't take any questions. Kamala Harris won't take any questions. You cannot question the administrative authority of the high priest of science. So they're shutting down the ability to debate. They're shutting down the ability to bring in other points of view to prove that they're wrong. They want none of this. This is, in some ways, the greatest totalitarian standard that could be put into effect. More than taking away your guns, more than taking away any other right or freedom. It is your ability to speak, your ability to question, your ability to provide alternative information that is equally grounded and based in science, but provides a different look or different alternative to the one that's being rolled out for you. This is probably the most egregious act that is being committed upon you and everybody else on this planet. And there are so many people at this point in time who are just fine with it. They're just fine with it because they have mixed in this idea that free speech and free will and individualism is part of the Trump contagion. And by eliminating this, what are you doing? You're shutting down people who support Trump and who support anything that's related to Trump. It is utterly flawless in its design in some ways. It is absolutely deceitful and flawless in its design. However, almost flawless. It does have, everything has a back door. Everything has a back door. Remember that. Everything has the ability to get inside of it and then move into it and begin to disassemble the structure. I'm going to give you an update on the Unmasquerade, which happened yesterday. Let me finish this. In a sober briefing to the cabinet, the two scientists warned ministers the R rate had risen above 1, meaning the virus was spreading exponentially again. Today's change will mean an end to large family gatherings and big congregations in parks and pubs. Christmas family reunions are also under threat. They're going to cancel Christmas. I think they're going to try to cancel Christmas. This is going to be look, this is all mind control. This is all mind control and behavior modification. This is what this is all about. He stressed the social distancing was the first line of defense. He said he was concerned about the situation in France and Spain. In France, hospitalization rate has trebled in a month, while in Spain it has increased 15-fold since July. They just use these big tranches of data. They don't say what the hospitalization rate is about. They don't get into the specifics. I mean, they could use any kind of data point now in order to buttress their argument or whatever it is that they want to legislate. It's horse shit. Sorry. The Hands Face Space campaign urges people to ensure that they've washed their hands, used a mask where appropriate. Hands Face Space campaign. God. The campaign states that these are the 3 most effective ways the public can contain the spread of the virus, on and on and on and on and on. This is all on the aftermath of major demonstrations happening in London and across England. Okay, there it is. One former minister told Mail Online, be dreadful and disproportionate, enormous intrusion of private life and ruled by directive. However, the latest daily death total is considerably higher than the 3 recorded the day before. Again, there's no possible way we can absolutely and utterly trust the statistics. The statistics have been proven to be faulty from the start. Niall Ferguson, the guy who put the pandemic doom chart together, was just absolutely and utterly wrong. He's wrong. That guy's gone undercover. They'll prop him up once people forget who he was and how absolutely astoundingly wrong and horrific his track record is. They'll prop him back up. Oh, it's going to be terrible. Yeah, right. How terrible was it? That guy should be hunted down. I'm telling you right now. That guy should be hunted down. That guy should be hunted down to at least have a very rigorous interview with him, right? Hunt him down so you could have a rigorous interview with him. So you could really ask him how he feels about projecting such a massive, massive death toll across the planet. And his prediction, of course, was used by Anthony Fauci to essentially lock America down, right? It all started with that guy. So, of course, when it comes to being able to come up with the most predictable models, the English, scientific, and academic and parliamentary community are the ones to be trusted the most. It's a bunch of horse shit. Well, nobody talks about Sweden. Nope. Nobody really talks about Sweden. We're going to talk about Sweden. And we're going to talk about how Sweden has achieved the theoretical herd immunity. Here we go. Sweden close to victory over coronavirus. Never had a lockdown or mask mandate. As the rest of Europe and the world remains under the grip of draconian rules and threat of new lockdowns, Sweden, which allowed its citizens to remain free throughout the entire pandemic, has pretty much declared victory over the coronavirus. The country now has one of the lowest infection rates on the planet, and it's difficult not to admire how it was handled the past year, with no strict lockdown or compulsory face mask rules. All businesses, schools, and public places remained open in Sweden for the duration. Sweden has gone from being the country with the most infections in Europe to the safest one. Sweden's senior epidemiologist, Dr. Anders Tegnell, commented to Italian newspaper Corriere della Sera. What we see now is the sustainable policy might be slower in getting results, but it will get results eventually, Tegnell clarified. And then we also hope that the result will be more stable, he added. Tegnell previously warned that encouraging people to wear face masks is very dangerous because it gives a false sense of security, but does not effectively stem the spread of the virus. The findings that have been produced through face masks are astonishingly weak, even though so many people around the world wear them. Last week, the European Center for Disease Prevention and Control confirmed Sweden's drop in infection rate with only 12 cases per million, compared to 18 in neighboring Denmark and 14 in nearby Norway. There you go. There's that all-important graph. I love the background. It's like, here it is, the Matterhorn, and then brrr, brrr. Now, what's interesting is, this is so funny. So this is Denmark and this is Norway. Well, they're pretty damn low too. Like, okay, it has nothing to do with the mask. I say that right now. The figures also show that out of 2,500 randomly selected and tested people in Sweden, none tested positive, compared to 0.9 positive in April and 0.3. Look at those figures, 0.9 and 0.3. Sweden's death rate sits somewhere in the middle. We know that the death rate is connected to people who are essentially dying of something and then having a COVID-19 label slapped on it. There was a story that came out last week, I think some guy in Ohio or Indiana, and that guy got a I think it was a letter in the mail that his mother had tested positive for coronavirus and needed to be quarantined. Well, the only problem was his mother had been dead for 6 months. Yeah, think about that. His mother had been dead for 6 months. And yet, somehow, magically, the local county health commission had figured out that her corpse had contracted coronavirus. So I guess she has to stay in her coffin a bit longer before they exhume her. I don't know. Maybe they cremated her. See, do you see what's happening here? Do you see what's happening? This guy got a statement. He got a directive from the hospital telling him that his dead mother had to be quarantined. Oh, a simple mistake. Right. So why is Sweden being given the kid gloves treatment? Why has Sweden been allowed to pursue this path of herd immunity? I'm going to tell you why. But before I tell you why, let me give you an update on what happened last night on the Unmasquerade. So we decided to change the day. Normally, we do our Unmasquerade on Wednesday, but because we want to change it up a little bit, and be less predictable, we decided to change the day. So we went out yesterday, and it started off with, there were, I believe, 1, 2, 3, 4. There were 5 of us that got together, and then there were another 2 that were already in the store. And so we were 7 strong. And let me tell you something. Every time we've done this, we have gone in there, and there have been at least 3 to 5 other people not associated with our little flesh mob. You know, they were already there, and they were just going about their business and shopping, and that happened. And it's really one of those really interesting kinds of synchronistic moments, because I've gone in there, with this sans mask, and I've been the only person. This has been, that was a very interesting development. It happened 2 times ago when we went in. So there really is, I think, some very interesting kind of divine intervention around this thing. And so one of the things that we like to do is we like to check out together, meaning that we want to be in the same line, or we want to be seen in separate lines, but all at the same time, part of the strategy, right? So yesterday, there was a guy who was, going naked face, and he was in the line in front of me. And so I just went right in behind him, and he had a lot of groceries. So there was the potential for the 2 of us to be seen together in the line for a very long time. And you could tell that the people who work there are just jonesing to get the stupid masks off. You just know that they are. You know that they are. And at some point, the people who work at these establishments have the ability to turn the tide. If everybody at HEB said, we're not wearing the mask anymore, what would HEB do? Would they fire everybody? No, they wouldn't. They couldn't. They wouldn't be able to, right? They could not. If the people at HEB were aware of the fact that there is a thing called the Americans with Disabilities Act, and that potentially what they're doing with the masks could be hazardous to their health, it could pose a health risk that is probably much, much greater than whatever supposed risk the so-called coronavirus has in store for them, right? They can stop it. But most people are afraid of losing their jobs. And when the economy becomes a wreck, when the economy is basically being imploded, then people are afraid to lose their livelihoods, and they will do what they were told. This is the carrot and the stick. And this is one of the unfortunate things. And then when they do lose their livelihood, well, guess what? The government comes around, and people like Scott Morrison or Donald Trump or whomever will say, well, we're going to give you some assistance. We know that times are tough. Well, really, all you needed to do was pump the brakes a lot harder and a lot faster on this thing before. But now we're in this global space race for the vaccine, which, by the way, has proven to be not good. AstraZeneca has already had a death with one of the vaccines. Let me show you why I believe Sweden was given the kid glove treatment. It's a rather controversial video. I've played it before, and I don't have a problem playing it again. Okay. Now, when I play this, and here's the disclaimer, okay, this is not an indictment of everybody associated with a particular group. You have to understand that. Okay. So when I bring something up, it is not an indictment of that group in general. It is a look into specific dynamics that are going to be demonstrated by a particular individual who is associated with a certain group. Okay? Keep that in mind as I play this video. It's very important to understand that. The video I'm going to play is a video that I played many years ago. I believe I started playing this video around 2015 or 2016. So we're talking about 4 or 5 years. And this was maybe even longer than that. And this was Europe's wake-up call. And they weren't listening. So the video I'm going to play for you is a video that is, let's see, how old is it? This is September 9th. Oh, look at that. Look at that. On the dot. Just on the dot. September 9th, 2015. So exactly 5 years ago to the day, this video was posted on Facebook. And it has remained there for 5 years. Talk about some synchronicity, right? That's what you call a confirmation. The video is short. It's about 1 minute and 10 seconds. And the prime focus of the video is a woman by the name of Barbara Lerner Spector, a former American who has made Aliyah and at that time was living in Sweden, formed a group called Paideia, whose sole purpose and goal was to bring multiculturalism to Europe. Let's play the video.
As we heard, there are people in Sweden who support Israel and have a deep sense of the injustice of the present situation. It's these people.
See that? Look at that. Look at that. Do you think that this little clip right here is just happenstance? Absolutely not. This is a lodge of illumination. And this is a black lodge of illumination. This represents the dark light. This is the Saturnian light right here. You see that? They're very clear, and they're letting you know who is behind this door, right? And we are in that moment, the Janus moment. This is where the Janus moment begins. Okay, here we go.
Who give hope to those who still believe that things will get better here. One of them is Barbara Spector, a former American who made Aliyah and then 10 years ago, with the help of the government of Sweden, set up a non-denominational institute of Jewish learning with the Greek name of Paideia here in Stockholm. She believes the current wave of anti-Semitism in Sweden will pass and that Jews have an important role to play in a country undergoing profound change.
I think there's a resurgence of anti-Semitism because at this point in time, Europe has not yet learned how to be multicultural. And I think we're going to be part of the throes of that transformation, which must take place. Europe is not going to be the monolith.
There are people in Sweden who support Israel and have a deep sense of the injustice of the present situation. It's these people who give hope to those who still believe that things will get better here. One of them is Barbara Spector, a former American who made Aliyah and then 10 years ago, with the help of the government of Sweden, set up a non-denominational institute of Jewish learning with the Greek name of Paideia here in Stockholm.
Paideia.
She believes the current wave of anti-Semitism in Sweden will pass and that Jews have an important role to play in a country undergoing profound change.
I think there's a resurgence of anti-Semitism because at this point in time, Europe has not yet learned how to be multicultural. And I think we're going to be part of the throes of that transformation, which must take place. Europe is not going to be.
Where have we seen that before? That is the Bill Gates effect. That's the Bill Gates and that's the Fauci effect. This woman is absolutely delighted. She's delighted. She looks like an alien, doesn't she? She looks like an alien. She like the gray thing. Gray. Interesting. She's having a grand old time. This is what I wanted to stop. Look at her. She's like, oh, here we go. Let's play this out.
The monolithic.
The monolithic
societies that they once were in the last century. Jews are going to be at the center of that. It's a huge transformation for Europe to make. They are now going into a multicultural mode, and Jews will be resented because of our leading role. But without that leading role and without that transformation, Europe will not survive.
Paideia.
Okay. Here, let me play this again.
As we heard,
hold on. I just want to look at her facial expressions.
They once were in the last century. Jews are going to be at the center of that. It's a huge transformation for Europe to make. They are now going into a multicultural mode, and Jews will be resented because of our leading role. But without that leading role and without that transformation, Europe will not survive.
Okay, so why will Europe not survive? Why will Europe not survive? Why? Why? Why will Europe not survive? Is it because they won't have enough people? Will there will Europe age so rapidly that there will be nobody there to take care of them or rebuild their society? Right? Why? 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 That was in 2015. And look what's happened since 2015. Look at the waves of so-called immigration that have come into Europe, from 2015 on. And Sweden was a beachhead. Sweden was targeted very early on to be sort of the figurehead. They would be the model state to embrace multiculturalism. And we've seen how that's worked so far with the no-go zones, the danger zones. There are parts of Sweden you just don't go into. You don't go there. Police won't go there. First responders won't go there. And this is the one of the unfortunate trademarks of forced multiculturalism. Now, can people who are non-Swedish live in Sweden? Well, of course they can. If there was an immediate crisis, would Sweden be able to take people in, perhaps? Well, of course, right? But everything has to be processed and go through a thorough and measured process of integration. You could take maybe a small group, work with that small group, get them to understand this is your country now, this is how this works, right? And the operative word here is small. And then after the integration really takes place, then you can say, okay, well, you got a few other people here. This would be the most intelligent way to go about it. But that's not what happened. Essentially, Europe was flooded with so-called refugees to the point where it became a crisis. And in many regards, it is still a crisis because of the lack of integration into, their society or their culture or whatever it is that country represents. Okay. So Sweden was targeted early on. And what did Sweden do? Well, they allowed this group to be set up. They allowed Barbara Specter Lerner to come in and essentially roll out the red carpet. And guess what happens? They get to basically be mask-free. They get to be mask-free, and they get to have the global herd immunity. To me, this is the globalist reward for allowing whatever took place over the past 5 years to take place willingly, to be a willing participant in this influx of new people that has been an absolute shock to the system. Absolute shock to the system. So it's a cynical view. Yes, I know, but this is the way the world works, right? It's the way the world works. Now, conversely, I'll show you another way that the world works, but in a different direction. Now, here we have somebody who's not compliant. Let me go back here. Let me do the audio for him. Although he'll be talking in Belarusian, you'll see the subtitles. This is my guy, Lukashenko. I love this dude. I know he's a tyrant. He's a dictator, right? But he said no. He said absolutely no to the shenanigans that were being rolled out around the rest of the world. They offered him $940 million from the World Bank to lock down. Let's hear what the man has to say. Oh, here we go. Belarus offered $940 million. Quarantine.
Нацбанка главный переговорщик с Международным валютным фондом. Как здесь обстоят дела? Что от нас требуют партнеры? Было заявлено о возможности предоставить Беларуси 940 миллионов долларов так называемого быстрого финансирования. Как решается этот вопрос? При этом хочу заявить, что мы ни под кого плясать не будем. Там уже появляются требования. Вы, мол, в борьбе с коронавирусом в Беларуси делайте как в Италии. Слушайте, я не хочу, чтобы, не дай бог, повторилась ситуация в Беларуси, как в Италии. У нас своя страна, своя ситуация. Уже Всемирный банк готов нас профинансировать в 10 раз больше, чем предлагал, за то, что мы эффективно боремся с этой болезнью. Даже опыт запросил у Минздрава. А МВФ продолжает требовать от нас: вы давайте изоляцию, давайте карантин, давайте комендантский час. Слушайте, что за глупость?
So, do you see what happened there? He basically said, I'm going to play for you again. This guy said no. Just watch the subtitles here. Watch the subtitles, because down here you'll see exactly what he's talking about. It's an interesting symbol, isn't it? Probably a lot like the last one we saw. All right, here we go.
С Международным валютным фондом. Как здесь обстоят дела? Что от нас требуют партнеры? Было заявлено о возможности предоставить Беларуси 940 миллионов долларов так называемого быстрого финансирования. Как решается этот вопрос? При этом хочу заявить, что мы ни под кого плясать не будем. Там уже появляются требования. Вы, мол, в борьбе с коронавирусом в Беларуси делайте как в Италии. Слушайте, я не хочу, чтобы, не дай бог, повторилась ситуация в Беларуси, как в Италии. У нас своя страна, своя ситуация. Уже Всемирный банк готов нас профинансировать.
Hold on a second. This guy right here, not him. This guy right here, he looks troubled. He's like, oh, fuck. Oh, fuck. Can't we just play along? Can't we just play along? Watch him.
У нас своя
He's like, oh, boy. This one's going to be tough.
страна, своя...
Look at him. Look at him. There's your Judas in the court of Belarus. President Lukashenko, you got to watch out for this guy. Well, whoever this guy is, you got to watch out for him. Say, this guy's into it. He's like, yes, 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 I am with you.
Ситуация. Уже Всемирный банк готов нас профинансировать в 10 раз больше, чем предлагал, за то, что мы эффективно боремся с этой болезнью. Даже опыт запросил у Минздрава. А МВФ продолжает требовать от нас: вы давайте изоляцию, давайте карантин, давайте комендантский час. Слушайте, что за глупость?
There you go. See, that's how the game works. That is how the game works. They tie everything to monetary reward, because this is the shakedown plan that John Perkins talked about in Confessions of an Economic Hitman, a great book. If you haven't read it, I suggest you take a gander at it. He used to work for the IMF and the World Bank, would go into third world countries, set up the loans. They would default on the loans, of course, and because the payback conditions were onerous, and most of the people running those countries had to pay people off in their own country to stay in office, so that any reform they could actually enact, there wasn't a whole lot of money left over. In some cases, they were actually greedy bastards and use the money for themselves, and then it would default. He would come back and say, no, don't worry about it. Just sign on the dotted line. Give us your resources for perpetuity. And when we need a vote for you in the UN, you vote with us. Fine. That's how it works. Mr. Lukashenko ain't playing that game. He's not playing that game. So then what happens? So all of a sudden now he's got an election. They find some, Belarusian soccer mom to run against him. And, she loses. She lost the election. Whether it was fair or not, who knows? I don't know. But I can tell you right now that she was a setup candidate. She was a cardboard candidate. She was a cutout. They were ready and waiting to pull another Ukraine. totally pull another Ukraine. And they brought in the mobs, and they were ready to do another color revolution on Lukashenko. And, you know, who's behind it? Right? Is it the Soros people? You know, the other color revolutionaries? Is the Trump administration? Is the CIA? It had everything about it was color revolution. But his rival was so spooked and freaked out that she left Belarus and she went to Lithuania. She's now in exile in Lithuania. And he's been fighting off, you know, the people that want to tear that government down. Oh, beautiful cardinal right there. Wow. You're a handsome bird, aren't you? There are great birds here. Great birds. I like the bird action. Anyway, do you see what happens? So Sweden just says, okay, you know, where's the Vaseline? Where's the Vaseline? Give us the Vaseline. And look what happens. Oh, you play ball, and you don't have to play by the same rules. This cardinal is getting my attention. You play ball, and you don't have to play by the same rules. Lukashenko, on the other hand, not playing ball, and guess what? They want to detonate his government. They want to, you know, now he's a tyrant. Now he's a dictator. Now the world press machine moves into play. Then what's he doing? He's doing deals with Putin because he needs Putin now. And he needs Putin to have his back on the borders. It's exactly what he's doing. And Putin lost out on Ukraine. And maybe that was something he was going to do anyway. Maybe the Russians were going to give up Ukraine, but they certainly weren't going to give up Crimea. But it's like, well, hold on a second. We'll give you this, but we're not going to give you Crimea. And I don't think they're going to get Belarus either. I think Lukashenko will probably wind up continuing to be there. He's been there a very long time. A very long time. A lot of people call him a dictator because of the length that he's been there. Well, look, that dictator did a pretty fine job during the coronavirus. His people were essentially free. They had a professional soccer league. They had hockey matches. You could go out. You could dine. And the new global government does not want that. They want people wrapped up. They want you in your homes. They want a mask around your face. They want to track wherever you go. If you're online and you're watching, or you're online, if you're at home and your kid is doing online learning at home, they want to be able to look into your home, see what's going on. Right? This is the all-seeing eye. They don't want people to go off the range. And that's what Lukashenko did. And he's being punished for it. Absolutely punished for it. A tale of two countries. So why is coronavirus not epidemic in Africa? This is a question that a lot of people are asking. Why are they not? Why is Africa not being suspected or not? Why is Africa? Oh, so there's going to be, let me do this. Here we go. Let me do I'm going to get into the Africa thing in a minute. Let me get to the Africa thing in a minute, but I want to show you something. For all of you people who are in Australia and you do want to participate in some form of protest, let me show this to you. You probably already know it, but I'm going to show it to you anyway. So you may want to follow this person. Come get me, Scott Morrison. Come get me, Dan Andrews. Right there. Monty Morrow, 77. Location TBA, 1 hour prior to 11 a.m. Sunday 13th. Be ready. Only a video with the exact corresponding background as this poster will announce the official location. The very reasons this needs to be organized so anonymously is why we must unite en masse against them. This will never be canceled. See that? Never. Do not be afraid or tricked into not uniting with us again. So go down in history as the biggest and most glorious peaceful assembly for freedom Australia will ever have. Will never acquiesce to tyranny and fascist dictatorship. Okay, there you go. So I'm doing my part to take a screenshot of that. If you live down under, get a good gander of that. There you go. A flash mob in Australia. That just crossed my screen. So the thing about Africa is quite interesting. Why is Africa not having the cases that the rest of the free world is supposedly having? Well, this is an interesting question. All right. So, number one, it's not about Africa. It is not about Africa. It is not about Africa. Period. End of story. It is about the U.S. It is about Europe. It is about Canada. It's about Australia. It's about New Zealand. That's where it all starts. And then there's the trickle down and everybody else. It's about these countries. That's number one. Number two, Africa is already under some form of subjugation because of the influence of the whatchamacallit, the organism. I'm having a blank moment here. It's the influence of these groups and foundations that come in and start doing things for Africa, right? So Africa, to some degree, has already been subjugated. There's poverty. There's already levels of dis-ease and ill health. Governments are also quite chaotic in a lot of ways. So they don't really have to be, Africa doesn't really have to be reined in. And that's why. The other thing with Africa is this is a country that lives pretty much on hydroxychloroquine because of malaria. And perhaps because they take hydroxychloroquine to stop the spread of malaria, or at least the effects of malaria upon their own body and others, also inhibits the ability for this coronavirus, which may be very much connected to malaria, can't get in. So there's a number of reasons why Africa has not had the epic pandemic numbers. But rarely does the media ever talk about it. Rarely. I'll tell you what else the media doesn't talk about. I'll show you this right here. Oh, we might get a little Tucker action on this thing. Might. One rule for thee and one rule for me. There you go. There it is. And by the way, this is all on purpose, right? They just rub it in your face. This is a face rub right here. Total face rub. He knows it. One rule for thee and one rule for me. Or you see that? Right there. Of course. Tucker's been getting these tapes from Michael Cohen. I don't know where he's getting the tapes. I think he's getting them from Michael Cohen. Here's what I think has happened. I think Michael Cohen has done a deal with Fox. Michael Cohen recorded all these conversations with Jeff Zucker, with his buddy, Chris Cuomo, and he's selling those tapes to Fox, and Tucker's playing them. And they're kind of damaging. Jeff Zucker comes off as being just the most weaselly suck-up. They should call him Sucker Man instead of Zuckerman. He had a whole thing about how much he likes Donald Trump, wanted to give him his own TV show. He was giving Michael Cohen pointers for the debate. Are you kidding me? So a lot of this, manufactured angst is just bullshit. They're just involved in business decisions. That's all they're doing, right? And they're manufacturing dissent. so that CNN could have eyeballs. That's it. They're manufacturing dissent so CNN can have eyeballs. The more dissent that they manufacture against Trump, the more people that would be magnetized towards CNN's content because of the deep polarization. That's what it's about. You know, if CNN wanted to, they could manufacture dissent in the other direction if it ensured the fact that they were going to get eyeballs and they were going to get sponsors and they were going to get all that commercial money. They would do it in a heartbeat. Heartbeat. Especially with the blessing of the alphabet agencies. And the only person on Fox worth watching, as far as I'm concerned, is Tucker. That's it. Period. End of story. End of story. Okay. So I think we're pulling this thing back into the dock here. There have been a number of really bad cases of the vaccine going south already. I just wanted to maybe bring that into the discussion before I jump off today. Give me 1 second here. Let me see if I can find the let me see what we got here. It's like the airlines are begging for bailouts so you can buy more BLM pins and stick on your flight attendants. Let's see. California, you got problems. You got problems with your power, literally and figuratively. I wanted to show you. Let me do this. Lynette, who is a very, very cool person. Let me show you. She sent me a photo yesterday. Let me show you what Salem looks like. And by the way, this is not a doctored photo. This is not a doctored photo. This is terrifying, actually. Absolutely terrifying. This is life on Mars. This is Salem, the capital of Portland. Now, I'm sorry, Oregon. Now, there was a big skirmish on the streets of Salem over the weekend, and the Proud Boys showed up, and Antifa / BLM took a bit of an ass whooping. Is this the payback? Watch this.
Hi, y'all. So this right here is downtown Staten. You can see the red hue, the red-orange glow in the sky. There's ash that is falling visibly in front of, when we were driving here, in front of the headlights of the car. But downtown, basically empty here, besides a few cars here, people walking around in cars. But the smell of smoke is heavy. At exit 13 off Highway 22 is where a roadblock is. So you can't go any further than that. But just wanted to show you what downtown Staten looks like right now at 12:22 in the afternoon.
That was 12:22 in the afternoon. Wow. 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 Welcome to Mars. Welcome to Mars. And it's the Aries sky. It's the Mars and Aries sky right there. There it is. The Mars and Aries illumination of the sky. Blood, fire, sulfuric damnation. I mean, this is the atmospheric spell that's being cast over the good people of Oregon in a town called Salem. Interesting? Question mark. Ironic? Question mark. Yeah. So we are in a fight for our spiritual lives. We are in a fight for our spiritual lives. This is where it's at. We are here now. You are on the front lines of revelation, redemption, tribulation. It's here right now. You're bearing witness to it, and hopefully you will bear more than just witness to it, that you will understand this and you will begin to live your life accordingly. and do everything in your power to get right with God, whether that means take Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, sit down and pray a couple times a day, make sure your relationships with people are on the up and up and solid, right? Everything counts now. Everything counts. It always counted, but now as the aperture gets, tighter and tighter and tighter, as the windows begin to close, everything counts. And how you respond, how you deal with the affairs of your life, how you deal with others, how you deal with details, how you deal with follow through. These are things that I'm really doing my best to stay up on. Some things fall through the cracks, but I'm certainly working on it, because this is how we are at this point in time. This is how our futures will be determined, not just in the next life, which is important, by the way, and there is another life after this life, but how our futures unfold in this life moving forward. So these things are critical, and don't think that they're not important. They are. And you may not be able to go out and take down somebody who has been an egregious bully and sucker punch somebody. And I know that pisses a lot of people off, and it pisses me off. But there are things you can do. There are things you can do. And I talked about them yesterday. And one of the things that I wanted to put a kind of an attachment onto that is that when you do those things, and again, the things that I was referring to were things like self-care, self-love, taking care of your emotional house, everything that goes along with that. When you do that, it's not just for you, right? That's important, because you are a vessel, and you are a portal, and you are a channel for the cosmos, for the divine. I don't want to say divine cosmos. This is David Wilcock thing, but you are a channel for that divine energy, that sacred, that logos to operate through. And you want that to be as unobstructed as possible. As unobstructed as possible. That's why you do it. You don't do it to glorify the self. You don't do it. You do it so you create pathways and channels for it to move through you. Okay? This is what we do. This is why we do it. This is important. And when that happens, then real magic can happen and things can take place. And like showing up at HEB with 7 people, and all of a sudden we've got about 5 other people there, and we didn't dial that up. We needed like 12 people. Well, guess what? We got 12. We didn't have to plan that. This is what I'm talking about. Okay, you get out of your way as much as you can, and you let this move through you. And it works wonders. It is the energy and the essence of magic and the miraculous. In order to do that, you have to be the custodian of your own experience and make sure that your systems are in place and you can maintain the highest level of that as possible. Okay. And then you give thanks for it, because you know that without it, you're nothing. Trust me, I've been there. I know what it's like. Without it, you're nothing. Don't even exist. And so when you understand that, you want to make sure you stay really connected to that. You want to stay connected to that beam, that tractor beam of consciousness and light and love and truth as you possibly can. Because when you go off course, when you go off path, when you go off track, it's very painful. Very painful. And it can be a pretty significant learning experience. All right. That's it for today. Thank you very much. Tomorrow is the deadline to sign up. I think we might have reached maximum with rooms at the hotel. I've got to check with the hotel today. That does not mean you cannot attend. There are other hotels in the area. If you want to attend the event, there will be a link in the show page here. We also have a webinar on Saturday, which is basically your astrological survival guide for the next 3 months. And if you just want to support the show, I'm going to put a link here, and the link will be in the show page for the foreseeable future. It will take you to PayPal, and I'm just going to have a donate button. So if you want to donate something, whatever you want to donate, you don't have to be a part of a repeating sort of subscription model, although that will be part of my website in the third week in September. We're going to move towards that, but the donate button will be ubiquitous here on this channel. Okay, so that's it. So 3 links, they'll all be there, and I guess I'll put some links to some of these other articles that I posted in case you want to share them with other people. There you go. Thanks for being here. Use your head in order to discern what's real, your heart to stay open to what's possible. I'm Robert Phoenix. Have yourself a fantastic day, and see you tomorrow.